Walking Dead is a show about zombies and survival, and it has some really lovely moments in, some really tense moments and some really scary moments. So today we are going to go through the scary moments in season order of The Walking Dead. So the first one we're going to start with is the walkers at the tank, and this is episode 1, Days Gone By. So this is the very first walker encounter that Rick has, and this is in Atlanta, and this is really scary. So you first see the appearance of the walkers combined with the sound of them approaching, and it sets the tone for the entire series. It's a moment that really shows how isolated Rick is and how helpless he is in that situation. Also in season 1 we have the Atlanta Camp Walkers, that is episode 6 TS-19. So in the final episode of the season, Rick and his group go to the CDC, and this is where the tension builds to a terrifying climax. The explosion of the CDC is chaotic, but what's really scary is that you get this realization that the walkers are actually closing in on the camp, and the eerie silence following the massive horde is just unsettling. I absolutely love it when series stop music and you just have the tension. I watched Full Metal Jacket for the first time recently, and there was just scenes where there was no music, and it was so much more tense than any music could have made that film. And that's why I love scenes that do this. Moving on to season 2, and these two things we're going to talk about are both from the same episode, which is episode 7, Pretty Much Dead Already. And the first bit is the walkers in the barn. So the survivors find out that Herschel has been keeping walkers in the barn, and there is a moment of chaos and panic as the group realise the enormity of the threat actually around them. Up until that point, they felt pretty safe. There was just the odd walker. They didn't realise there's an entire barn just across the field, and then the horde actually bursting forth is terrifying. You just don't know what's going to happen. But this also comes with a bit of sad information. So this is when Sophia's death is revealed. So earlier in the series you see Sophia's gone missing and they're looking for her, and it basically gets revealed that Sophia was a walker this entire time, and she was actually in the barn the entire time. So they were so close to her. Her mother was so close to her and had no idea of her fate or the proximity. It really is a heart-wrenching, horrifying moment of that series, of series 2. It was, of season 2 should I say. There have been some very heart-wrenching moments in the whole of The Walking Dead, but this was one that was very early on. Emotionally, this was a scary moment because you have the lead up to it, you have the emotional fallout, you have the grief behind it as well. So there's a lot of emotions that get packed into that one small little scene, which makes it emotionally quite scary to watch. Season 3, we just have one for this, and this is episode 15, This Sorrowful Life, and that is the governor's torture of Andrea. So the governor is terrifying in a lot of ways. He's very unhinged. You think when the group get there that actually he's maybe a salvation. He really isn't. There's something not right with that man. And he actually locks Andrea tied to a chair in a room with a walker, and it's very disturbing. You know there's psychological torment going on. There's the tension of her trying to escape before actually being eaten alive by the walker. It's haunting. It really is. The screaming, the panic, all that sort of stuff. You can't help but feel for her, because by this point, you've been through her 3 seasons, you've gotten to know her a bit. So yeah, that one is quite sad. Moving on to season 4, so episode 8, Too Far Gone. This is when the governor returns. So this is very much an intense and terrifying moment as he lures the prison into a false sense of security only to launch an all-out assault. He confronts the prison, and the governor's madness is haunting, and he uses his assault rifle to kill members of the group. So it's really sad. This is followed on by the next episode, which is episode 9, After, and this is when the prison falls. So the prison is overrun with walkers at this point. The group is forced to scatter. It's got tense scenes. Rick and Carl are trapped in flooded corridors with walkers closing in. And they are really suspenseful as well, because you don't know. Obviously, I think when you were watching it when it came out, you probably didn't know how it was going to turn out. But I watched it like years and years later, so I knew that everything would turn out fine. Unfortunately, I had quite a few spoilers by that point. I knew who had survived, who hadn't survived, how things had gone. So yeah, I definitely think when you watched it for the first time, it probably was really suspenseful. Moving on to season 5, we have episode 1, No Sanctuary, and this is the Terminus slaughter. So the survivors are led into a trap at Terminus, and it's quickly revealed that the people who live there are actually cannibals. So they've gone from a walking dead terror to a living terror instead. So they are captured and herded into a slaughterhouse type of environment as well, combined with horrific realisation of the intentions. This is really intense, really. You know, you just think, oh my gosh, they really can't catch a break here. They're about to be eaten, or either way they're going to get eaten, is kind of the impression that you get. So it is quite, it's quite tense. If we then move to episode 2, which is JSS, that is when the wolves attack Alexandria. So the wolves is a violent and chaotic group of people, it's not actual animals, and they invade the Alexandria safe zone, and they are just absolutely brutal. They slaughter the residents, they have sadistic behaviour, and it really is quite disturbing. I know that they say people do anything to survive, but that just seemed a little bit too much. It just seemed a little bit dramatic and unnecessary. Season 6, episode 3, thank you, the death of Glenn. So you think Glenn's died because he's trapped under a horde of walkers, and it really is nerve-wracking and heart-pounding. And again, unfortunately, I already knew that this wasn't the case at this point, but I think watching it for the first time, you would have known that. I just closed that. I think watching it for the first time when it was released, you would have thought, okay, this is the end of Glenn. Like, there's no way he's going to survive this. It also is the moment that Rick and the group think he's gone. It's a tense near-miss situation where he's barely able to escape with his life. So it is a bit nail-biting. You are on the edge of your seat a little bit, hoping that Glenn manages to get out. But this actually is almost foreshadowing for the next point I'm going to bring up, which is still in season 6, episode 16, A Last Day on Earth, and this is the introduction of Negan. This is part 1 of kind of feels like a 2-part episode, this one, although it's not portrayed that way. So this is where you see Negan and his barbed baseball bat Lucille. Viewers are left in suspense because what you see is Negan taking the bat and swinging it towards someone, but you don't know who, and that's the end of the episode. And I had to watch the next one straight away. Now, this is the end of season 16, and you don't find out what happens till the beginning of season 17. So again, because I watched it later, I was able to see straight away what happened. But I dread to think how long people had to wait to find out who was actually the victim of that bat swing. So it did leave people with uncertainty. It was gut-wrenching. People were probably scared, what's happened, so definitely one of the scariest moments. Which brings us into season 17, episode 1, The Day Will Come Where You Won't Be. And this is the death of Abraham and Glenn. So the opening episode of season 7 is the most emotionally horrific and psychologically horrific of the entire series. Negan's first kill is brutal, which was Abraham, and I was really sad about Abraham dying. I really liked him as a character, so for me it was really sad. And then he turns attention to Glenn, and Glenn's death was brutal, it was horrific, it was violent as well. It was savage and it was tragic. Maggie was there and you could see her crying, and Glenn was trying to say he loved her, and it was, it's one of those things that just sticks with you. It's definitely one hell of a way to open a season. So let's move on to episode 7 of season 7, Sing Me a Song, and this is when the Walker Horde attack the Sanctuary. So a massive horde of walkers approach the Sanctuary, and there's a sense of dread that's building throughout the episode. How far they're going to get, who's going to die, what's going to happen. Because they're approaching the Sanctuary, you also don't mind too much because it's Negan, and you're just like, well, you're a bit of a douche. Like, if you die, I don't care. But Negan's my favourite villain from The Walking Dead, so I kind of wanted to see how far he would go. But yeah, basically his people aren't safe at that point in time. And again, just the suspense of seeing that massive horde is still a bit scary anyway, regardless who it's going toward. Okay, so season 8, we have episode 16, the first day of the rest of your life, and this is the Battle of the Hilltop. So this is the Saviours, so they are completely ruthless. They employ a strategy that makes for a nerve-wracking and dangerous fight. The Walkers always, of course, are a threat, but it's the savagery of the Saviours, and they're willing to kill anyone who stands against them. That's what creates the real fear here, really. They are 100% ruthless. They're not really, I wouldn't say they are keen to work together, they're just keen to survive, which I get. But they will take down anyone living or dead in their way if they have to. So throughout the entirety of season 8, we have Negan's reign of terror. So we do have Negan's presence very much throughout the entire thing. He has sadistic methods to keep people in line. He has people kneel before him. He forces them to make difficult and brutal decisions. And he does create a suffocating atmosphere of fear as well. So Negan is, he's ruthless. So I still stand by. I think he's the best villain in The Walking Dead. Season 9, so we're straight into episode 19 in Adaption, the Whisperers' first appearance. So the induction of the Whisperers is one of the scariest twists in the series. So these are people who disguise themselves as walkers. They will take walker skin and wear it on their head in a bid to basically blend in. So they also have chilling animal-like behaviour, and it heightens the threat of the dead. They basically walk alongside them. They can blend in with hordes. It's creepy. And Alpha definitely does have a hold on people in a weird way. I found her a very weird character. She freaked me out in a way as well. She was just almost numb to stuff. And yeah, it wasn't really, I don't know, the fact they're living among the walkers as well, it's a game changer. It's just weird, creepy. So we then have episode 14, Scars, and this is the death of Jesus. So his death's not only shocking, but it's completely unexpected. You think that they're surrounded by walkers, but one of them actually comes out with a knife and kills him because it's actually a whisperer. And this event marks the true beginning of the Whisperer War, and you see him being stabbed, and it is chilling and it is really sad, and it kind of gives that whole, you don't know if they are walkers or whisperers. It gives that kind of like fear of, are our characters, are our heroes actually going to be safe at all? Possibly not. So the last one we're going to look at is in season 10, episode 12, Walk With Us, and this is Alpha's death. So Alpha's actually decapitated by Negan, and it's not just terrifying because of how gruesome it is, but because of how it psychologically impacts the group. The Whisperers have been a constant looming threat, but her death signifies a change in the balance of power as well. I was really happy when Alpha died. I found her really annoying, and like I said, I found her really weird, and she made me uncomfortable as well. Like I said, she was numb. She had no real emotion, even towards her own daughter. She kind of seemed indifferent, which is really sad. So I kind of liked how it was Negan that took her down. It was like villain v villain, so I did like that about that. But these moments that I've mentioned, they blend horror, emotional weight, relentless tension with what begins as a simple survival story into just how dark humanity will get to survive, how desperate they will be to survive, and the things that they will do. But these guys are my scariest moments in the whole 10 series of The Walking Dead. There are definitely sad moments that are out there, which, you know, we've got the deaths that are sad, we have certain events that are sad as well. Let me know if you want me to cover anything like that as well. Don't forget to subscribe. I've got some really fun stuff coming up this year, including some trips and some days out, so I don't want you to miss out. And until next time, you take care.